friends, welcome to this week's Kids Church at Home. We are now in the season of Advent. It's the beginning of the church year and it is the weeks leading up to Christmas. Advent is the time we take to tell the story of what Christmas is all about. Because Christmas is more than just gifts and family and holidays. Christmas is a shared story about hope and about love, about anticipating a new kind of peace, and about finding joy to share as a community. So through the season of Advent, each week we're going to build an Advent wreath together, and we're going to tell the story to prepare our hearts and to prepare ourselves for Christmas. But to do that, we need an Advent wreath. So today we're going to create an Advent wreath. Now this takes a few supplies that you'll need to find around your house, or if you were able to find our maker kit full of supplies in our take-home bin, we have the supplies for this there. Our Advent wreath is going to need some containers, small little containers, and some tea lights, because part of the Advent wreath is lighting a light each week, and each week that light gets brighter and warmer through the dark season of winter. So a little container and a tea light will help us with that. In order to decorate our light, we'll need some tissue paper. We'll need some green paper to create the wreath part. I have a holly leaf template that I'm going to use with my green paper, but you could also trace your hand and make hand-shaped leaves. And then we need some glue and some scissors, and I've added a little bit of water to my glue to make it easier to use, and I have a foam brush. So those are all the supplies we need, and let's get started on making this Advent wreath. The first thing we're going to do for our wreath today is change the color of the containers for our tea lights. We need one white container, one pink container, and 3 blue or purple ones. And the way we're going to do that today is cover them in tissue paper. Now I already had some tissue paper that was pre-cut, so here's my blue one, and then I have my white one, and I'm going to cut a few more squares out of my pink tissue paper for the last one. My tissue paper is all ready, so let's start with our first container. I'm going to grab my glue that's been watered down, dab a little bit on the outside of the container, and then put my first piece of tissue paper on. It's okay if it overlaps a little bit. I can trim whatever hangs over the edges at the end. I'm going to cover this whole container, the outside of it, in bluey purple colors, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. I've covered my first one all in blue and purple tissue paper. When I was done covering it, I took one more dab of paint all the way around on top of the tissue paper so that when it dries, it will have a nice clear shiny coat on it. Now I'm going to set this one aside to dry carefully, and I'm going to do 2 more in the blue and purple colors. This is pretty wet, sticky, and messy. So what I've done is I've grabbed some other paint containers, and I'm hanging my containers to dry upside down on them so that the edges don't get stuck to anything. That's what I figured out after doing these 3. So I've done my 3 blue purple ones. I'm now going to do my special pink one. The pink one is the candle for joy. It's for the 3rd week in Advent, and it's a little bit different. The story of joy and the week of joy is different from the other 3. So I'm going to cover this container in pink. Okay, and now it's my last container. These are my 4 weeks in Advent. I have my 3 purpley blue ones. I have my 3rd one for joy. This is going to be our Christ candle. This is the container for the candle on Christmas. So I'm going to make this mostly white. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow just for a little bit of extra color, but it's a mostly white candle for the Christmas Day candle. Okay, I finished all 5 of my containers. I've hung them upside down so that they can dry, and I'm just going to let them be until they're a little less sticky and it's a little less messy. While I wait for that, I'm going to work on my wreath. So let's move our glue out of the way. We're going to grab our green paper, and this is my leaf template. I'm going to cut out maybe 12 of these leaf shapes out of my green paper. If you want to be really creative and make this more your own, you might use your hand as a template instead, or maybe have different hands from everybody in your family and add those instead. But I'm just going to go with this leaf for today. I finished my wreath. There's my circle of leaves. You might want to decorate it now. Maybe add some markers or some beads or some ribbon or anything to make your wreath look a little bit more festive. Remember, we need to leave some room to put our candle holders on it. But now's a good time to make it your own. Make it look like you. Finally, it is time to add our candle holders to our wreath. So I'm going to grab my glue again. I've put my candle holders where I think I want them so they're equally spaced. I'm going to add a little bit of glue and stick my candle holder on. So I have the 3 blue purple ones and I have the pink one. And the white one I'm going to leave aside for now. It's not quite dry, but it will fit in the middle when I'm done. But there's nothing to glue it to, so I'm not going to glue it to anything. So now let's just add our tea lights, and then we'll let the wreath dry completely before I move it anywhere. And here is our final Advent wreath, all ready to be used through the season of Advent. So each of these candles that is in our Advent wreath helps us tell a part of the story of Christmas. This first candle is the candle of hope, and it tells us the story of hope, the story about the prophets before Jesus. Prophets were the people who, like Jesus and like others after Jesus, lived in the world and pointed the way towards God's love and God's message and God's presence. And the prophets told of a time when people would learn a new way to be in relationship with God and with creation. And that new way came through Jesus. And so this first candle of hope reminds us of all those who have come before us and who teach us the way to find God with us. Through the way that they live, through the lessons they share, through the actions they take in the world to make the world a better place and to help us live in better relation with God and God's presence. And so this is the candle of hope. Of hope that we can make a difference and we can change the world and we can help people to connect with God and we ourselves can find connection with God. And so let's light our candle of hope for this week. The candle of hope is lit, my friends. We are one step closer to Christmas. May you look for hope this week. Listen for God. Listen for the messages of God through the people around you. Take time to look for where you can find hope. And go with this blessing on your heart so that you may share hope with others as well. May there be love in your heart to give. May there be joy in your heart to share. And may there be strength in your heart to lift others up. See ya. Hello, my friends. This week we lit our candle of hope in our Advent wreath. But I thought, why don't we make a candle of hope together as well? So for this activity, we need a piece of black construction paper, and then we need some strips of blue paper, yellow paper, and orange paper. And if you have a pen or a marker, we'll need to grab that as well. Let's get started on making our special hope candle. The first thing we're going to do is make a blue candle. So I am going to rip my blue piece of paper into a bunch of little pieces like this. And then I'm going to take some glue and I'm going to make a rectangle or a long thin stick of glue on my page right about in the middle. And now I'm going to stick my pieces of blue paper onto the background to make it look like a blue candle. Okay, I'm happy with this as my blue candle. I'm going to trim that end off later. My candle needs a flame, so I'm going to grab some yellow and some orange. And again, I'm going to rip it into little pieces so that I can stick it on my page. With these pieces, I made them a little bit smaller because my flame is going to be smaller. So let me put my flame up here. And I'm going to put the yellow in the background. Here's a layer of yellow, and then I'm going to put a little bit of orange in the middle, because sometimes the middle of a candle has a little bit of a different color than the outsides. Have you ever paid attention to the colors that a candle can make? There we go. So there's my candle flame, and here is my blue candle. Now, what makes this a candle of hope? Well, I want it to show as though it has light coming out from the candle. So I'm going to take some more of my yellow strips, and this time I'm going to leave them unripped. I'm going to put 4 of them around the candle. So let me cut 4 pieces. I'm going to glue these pieces like rays of light shining around my candle. There's my 4 rays, and they're so bright, they're shining right off the page, and that's okay. What I want to add to my rays, though, are some things that help to bring me hope. So that's how I'm going to make this the extra special candle of hope. I'm going to think of 4 things that bring me hope, and I'm going to write them in my rays. All right, so Eli helped me come up with some of my hope ideas. We have hanging out with my kids, cuddling with our cats. My community at church brings me hope, and seeing family and friends, especially around Christmas and special occasions. I'm also going to add one last thing to my candle of hope. I'm going to add the word hope all the way down the big candle. And there, my friends, is my special hope candle for this season.